I think that that Alex's talk provides a great opportunity to step back a little bit and draw some of the connections between cosmology, entropy, and Darwinism and the origin of life. It's often said, and again, not in this particular forum, but there is an argument against natural selection and Darwinian evolution that creationists sometimes bring up that is clearly false, but it's false in an interesting way. It says the second law of thermodynamics says that disorder increases in the universe. Things run down. Eventually you will reach a heat death of the universe. So the argument says, how in the world can a universe governed by the second law develop such wonderful, complex, organized structures like we see here in the biosphere on Earth? There's a simple one-line refutation of that argument, which is that the second law says that entropy increases in closed systems, and the biosphere is not a closed system. Therefore, the argument simply does not apply. There's no law of physics that says the entropy of our biosphere has to go up. And that's true, but it still leaves unanswered the question of, okay, but why did all of this complexity and order and interestingness arise? Even if it's compatible with the second law doesn't say it has to become more complex over time. And that's a very interesting process that is not completely understood. It's very understandable, and I think that it's an open area of science that we're having a lot of fun with right now. So it's fun to think about exactly what's going on. Our Earth is very far from thermal equilibrium. Thermal equilibrium is the state you would be in when you'd maxed out your entropy. Everything was as dull as possible. The air in this room is pretty close to thermal equilibrium. It's all uniform and nothing is happening. The Earth is very far from that, and the reason why is because the sun is a hot spot in a cold sky. If you ask people sometimes why is the sun important for biology, for life on Earth, they might tell you, well, the sun, the rays from the sun, the radiation gives us energy. That's actually not true. If the whole sky were the temperature of the sun, we would be getting a lot more energy than we do now. However, what would happen is that the Earth would come to the temperature of the sun and life would cease. If the whole sky were dark, we'd get no energy. The whole Earth would come to the temperature of the night sky and life would cease. The only reason we can have life is because we get some photons from the sun, but particularly in a low entropy form. We then radiate out that energy right back to the universe. Overall, the Earth does not gain energy from the universe. Recently, it has been gaining energy because of global warming, but that's a minor little effect, and you'll be debating that next year. But usually, the amount of energy we give back to the universe is the same we get from the sun. But for every one photon, for every one particle of light we get from the sun, we radiate 20 photons back into the universe. We have increased the entropy of that sunlight by a factor of 20. The Earth not only is compatible with the second law of thermodynamics, it is an engine for increasing entropy to beat the band. And that's related to the origin of complexity. Complexity and entropy are very different things. If you think of stirring milk into a cup of coffee, before you stir the milk, the entropy is low. You have milk and you have coffee. After you stirred it, the entropy is high. They're all mixed up together. But before you stir the milk, it's a simple system. Milk, coffee. After you stir the milk, it's also a simple system. Everything is mixed up together. It's only in between, when you start mixing the milk into the coffee and the tendrils of milk mix in complicated ways, that you have a high degree of complexity. The universe is the same way. The early universe was very low entropy. The late universe will be very high entropy. But the early universe was a very simple place. And the late universe will also be a simple place. It's the middle phase of the history of the universe that is complex. The point is not that complexity requires low entropy. Complexity requires entropy to be increasing. The maintenance of complexity, as in a living being, requires that you are very far from equilibrium, living in an environment where entropy is going up to beat the band. So not only is the existence and evolution of life on Earth compatible with the second law of thermodynamics, in some very real sense, it's a spin-off. It is a consequence of the second law of thermodynamics. And the second law, in turn, happens because the early universe has a low entropy, which is a fundamentally cosmological fact. In that sense, life on Earth is able to exist because of the cosmological features of our universe 14 billion years ago. Thank you.